According to some historians, after the conquest of Istanbul, the Middle Ages closed and a new era began, which would last until the French Revolution of 1789. Byzantine scientists who fled Istanbul during the conquest were instrumental in starting the Renaissance and Reform movements in Europe. When we consider this historical event, which has caused such important developments, astrologically, let's see what we will find. Astrology is not only a means of predicting the future, it also sheds light on past events and allows us to look at our past in a more objective and holistic way. As the great leader Atatürk said, he who does not know his past cannot know his future. The siege begins. The date on which the Ottoman army reached the Byzantine walls for the conquest of Istanbul was April 6, 1453. On this date, the sun was exalted in Aries. The moon and Venus were in Pisces. Just like the Ottoman Sultan too. Sunday, March 30, 1432, dawn time, Edirne. As in the astrology chart of Mehmet Fatih Sultan Mehmet. In the sky, Venus, the Moon, Mercury and Jupiter appeared at longitudes close to each other. It is very significant that the brightest celestial bodies after the Sun were arranged in this way at the beginning of the conquest. From that night on, the fortifications began to be pounded with cannon fire. The Moon had switched to Aries. This was the first day of the siege, which was to last 54 days. On April 9, the 28th of Aries, a new moon had taken place in his degree. The new moon degree is the 28th of Libra. It was at the opposite angle to Saturn in retrograde degree. These settlements seemed to indicate that a lot of effort would be made to achieve the attempts to be made, obstacles would be encountered, and how difficult it was to overcome the walls and conquer the city. In contrast, the degrees of the Moon and the Sun and Saturn were the same, but the Moon-Sun conjunction exceeded the contrast only by minutes. The obstacles would be overcome, but it wouldn't be easy at all. On April 12, continuous shelling began. It is also an interesting connection that Jupiter has made the transition to Aries, where he is the ruler of Mars, which is associated with wars and conquests, on this date. As I will mention later, too. In Mehmet's astrology chart, the Sun, Mercury and Uranus are in Aries. The transition of Jupiter to Aries, which is associated with success and expansion, showed that he would achieve significant successes and gain strength in the following one-year period. April-May 18th, 6th, 12th and 29th, Istanbul was conquered in the last of the four major attacks. During the conquest, too, Mehmet had shown the indisputable genius of war expressed by the conjunction of the Sun and Mercury in his astrological chart with Uranus, the planet of genius, in Aries, which can best represent the qualities of fighting, pioneering and leadership. One of the most important of these was the conduct of ships from land. Reflecting his genius, many viziers and pashas reacted to this idea, but was adamant that execution of ships by land, April the 21st to the 22nd, 1453. The issue of the fact that the number of ships ranging from 30-70, which left the armory on the night of April, was lowered to Kasimpasa, is explained by both Byzantine and Ottoman historians with an alliance. According to the information I obtained from my research, the Ottoman Navy had organized its first major attack on April 18 to enter the Golden Horn, and the result had not been achieved. On April 20, the naval battle with 3 Genoese ships sent by the Pope was lost. These ships entered the Golden Horn, and this defeat caused a demoralization in the Ottoman Navy. Thereupon the preconceived plan was put into operation. The Ottoman ships built in the forested area, according to some historians, in Akmeiden, were moved from the land and launched into the sea in the Golden Horn. From an astrological point of view, interesting connections emerge. During the attack on April 18, Mars meets with Chiron at the last degree of Gemini. The wounding aspect of Chiron comes into play with the war planet Mars. On April 19, Mars moves into Cancer. This transition is almost like a sign that there will be important naval battles soon. On April 20, The right angle between Mars in Cancer and Jupiter in Aries and Neptune in Libra begins to activate December, in the afternoon hours. The Moon also decays into Libra, triggering the tense angle form, T-square, between these planets. Meanwhile, Mercury and Venus are also in Aries, which is the general representative of wars, and Venus has an angle tolerance that can be included in the T-square angle form. It is very clear from the astrological indicators how difficult the war with the Genoese ships was. On the night of April 21st, the Moon is still moving in Libra, before meeting with Saturn at the extreme degrees of this sign, just after sunset. The general indicator of plans and tactics is at the opposite angle with Mercury. The Ottoman Sultan, who will shock his enemy later with his amazing war tactics, Mercury and Uranus in Aries, decides to implement the plan to land the ships he has already determined by walking from the land to the Golden Horn, perhaps this night. Action is being taken on the night of April 22nd. They probably also took advantage of the moonlight, which began to become more pronounced this night. April 23rd morning, Scorpio 12. The full moon, which is realized in its degree, seems to express the emergence of the results of this shocking plan of the Ottoman Empire. Lunar eclipse, a sign that the city will fall. In the film Conquest 1453, the lunar eclipse, which took place while the city was under siege, was included in the delusion that the city would fall by the people of Constantinople. Lunar and solar eclipses are very important astrologically. They are seen as harbingers of rapid and dramatic changes. Ancient people were much more aware of this. Just a few days before the conquest, during the partial lunar eclipse that took place on May 22, 1453, the moon was visible on the eastern horizon and the sun on the western horizon. The fact that the sun is at the point of setting, at the same time merging with the southern lunar node, which expresses the fateful effects and decline, heralded the fall of the Byzantine Emperor Constantine. The eclipse took place under the sign of Sagittarius and showed that cultural, religious changes were imminent and that this situation would have important repercussions in the international arena. Sagittarius represents spreading to wide areas, opening up to innovations and new horizons. The conquest of Istanbul accelerated the spread of the Ottoman Empire in the Balkans. According to some historians, this conquest marked the true end of the Fetrid era, the period of internal struggle and confusion that arose with the defeat of Yildirim Beyazıt in the Battle of Ankara, where there was a struggle for reign. From another point of view, the era of princes, 1402 to 1413. After this conquest, the Ottoman Empire had become the most brilliant state of the Islamic world and had entered the path of becoming an empire that would direct world politics. Sagittarius represents issues related to different cultures and beliefs, religious themes, and expresses the ability to look at these issues from a broad perspective, wisely. After the conquest, the people of the city were informed that they were free in their beliefs. Since the conquest of the Ottoman Sultan Fatih Sultan Mehmed in 1453, Istanbul has been a center of tolerance that preserves its historical and cultural texture, where people of different faiths and cultures live decently together. Map of the Conquest of Istanbul, 2. It is included in Duca's work History of Byzantium, where Mehmed consulted the astrologers to determine the time of the last attack to be made for conquest. Duca's statement on the subject in the Byzantine history is exactly as follows: the Sultan did not want to engage in a serious battle before the appointed hour of the astrologers arrived. Source: Duca's Byzantine History Trans. V.L. Mermiroglu, Istanbul, Istanbul Conquest Association, Publications of the Istanbul Institute, 1956, page 169. We know that this information is also included in the work of Tarsi Zaid Kafir Celebi called Mrus Istanbul Fetihnamesi, Tarsi Zaid Ugray Kafir Celebi, Mrus Istanbul Fetihnamesi, Toem Nezri, Istanbul 1331, page 10. December might decipher the information given by historian and Turkish language researcher Ismail Hami Danzment. The public offensive started between 1 and 2 o'clock at midnight on May 29, and Istanbul was conquered between 7 and 8 in the morning. Between these hours, the Mars-Uranus conjunction was rising in Cancer on the eastern horizon, and Jupiter, the planet of victory, was located at the peak. December. Above you can see the astrology chart arranged according to May 29, 1453, 7 o'clock. My research was conducted by the Ottoman Emperor II. Tuesday, May 29, 1453 shows that Mehmed made his triumphal entry into Constantinople accompanied by 200 left-handers with his close bodyguard in the afternoon hours when the chaos had subsided and order had been restored. No clear time is given about this. But after entering the city, it is reported that he continued to move through the city, passing the Istanbul column and reaching Hagia Sophia by looking around, stopping to examine some important points. 2. Mehmed gets off his horse here and prostrates himself and praises Allah and then enters the church, ordering the people here not to be afraid of him and everyone to get out of the church and go to their homes in safety. It is said that the people began to empty the church at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. In these conditions, the moment of entry into the city should be at an hour between December 14:00 and 1500 hours in the afternoon. On the astrology chart arranged according to 1430, the Sun, which is merging with the southern lunar node, is 9. Eve seems to have fallen, and this fall indicates the fall of the Emperor Constantine. The fact that the top of the map coincides with the conjunction of Mars, Uranus and Pluto in the sign of Leo, which falls close to them, represents Fatih Sultan Mehmed, who was called the Conqueror after this conquest, Mars, and who started a new era with this conquest, Uranus, and gained great power, Pluto, expresses this symbolism more beautifully.